Hello everyone and welcome to Snap Take. Today's video is going to go over every card, every spotlight card, every spotlight cache, and tier them all. But first, we as always are not going to leave you without giving you a full deck guide. So let's kick it off with It's Guess Gaming's Epic Sax Party. This is the deck that he hit Infinite with, and then this deck has continued to perform in Infinite, into High Infinite for many players, myself included. This is a legitimate and extremely powerful deck. What's notable about it is a lot of the meta is 3 decks. You're seeing a lot of Hela. Well, if Hela doesn't have room for its cards to come back, you have a really great shot at beating that deck. Don't give them room to Jubilee, and they might not even be able to Hela. That's what this deck offers you in that matchup in particular, where it can absolutely rock Hela. Move decks need space to move. This not only limits their space, it runs Shadow King and Shang-Chi as a way to say, even if you can move, I can stop that. Absolutely stellar for that matchup as well is this deck. Finally, there's a lot of junk, since junk counters the 2 aforementioned popular decks. Well, you have a Nihilus, so as you get junked up, you spend turn 5 Annihilising, and as long as you snapped, you got at least 2 cubes, they are locked out of the game. You've dominated. This deck has a really great matchup into 3 different meta decks. Let's break it down a little bit more. Alright, you can find our friend It's Guess Gaming at twitch.tv/itsguessgaming. Please do check him out. He's a wonderful friend of the show and incredible content creator. You need White Widow and Cannonball for this list. White Widow is the only real clog on 2 that's consistent, and Cannonball is your game-winning card for a ton of matchups. Basically, if you clog one lane and then Cannonball another, you usually win the game. Nebula can be Titania. In fact, Titania is so good, I'm not sure that's not actually better. Titania wants to be in this deck very badly. It's also possible Kate Bishop wants to be Titania. Titania is absolutely stellar. If you do not have Annihilus, you can play Cersei. Cersei is worse in this particular version because Annihilus is here as a mirror breaker. But hey, it's perfectly fine to just run Cersei instead. Annihilus's only native target in this deck is the Hood, so it's not like you're really getting a ton out of it in every game, and you have Viper for that, but there's not a super ton you want to do with Cersei really either. Kate Bishop is here largely for Acid Arrow. The extra arrows are nice and have utility, but Kate Bishop is here largely for Acid Arrow, which you get 50% of the time. Titania or Baron Mordo are both very good replacements for that card. Baron Mordo is really good. It doesn't clog the board, but if they would get something that can mess with your clog, Mordo says that costs 6. It cannot be reduced. If they get a Mockingbird off it, they can't then reduce that Mockingbird. Mordo is a really, really underrated card. All right, so this is, again, I think this is a meta list. I'm not sure if this is the perfect version, but it's damn close. This list is stellar. Turn 1, you want to play Nebula blind. If the location is one that people can't reach, then Nebula gets big enough that she wins it alone. If the opponent has to play in that Nebula lane, it makes it very, very easy for you to clog that lane and then auto-win it later. Hood is stellar, not only because you can Viper or Annihilus it over, but Hood's other real power in this deck is that you don't have a 6-drop. Your end of game is often Shang or Cannonball, and then you have an extra 6-drop you can play with it. That's the power of running Hood in this list. Do not change it for anything. Turn 2, you generally speaking want a Widow. The only exception is if you know that your turn 5, if you've looked at your hand and your turn 5 is very likely to be Viper and another card, Viper and White Widow is better than Viper and Kate Bishop at that point. So make sure that you consider that. But generally speaking, you just drop Widow here and you're perfectly happy to do so. Turn 3 is Debris or Goblin, depending how full they're getting. If they have a very, very full board already, then Debris is better because you can just lock them out of the game. If they're not playing a lot of cards, Goblin is better. You can survive Goblin getting stuck on your hand due to Annihilus, but you'd rather not just put yourself in that situation. Either one of those cards are also fine on turn 4, but Dr. Octopus is your preferred play. Dr. Octopus just does a really great job at saying that lane that was almost full is now full, while having enough power to still leave you competitive in it. That extra competitive power is important, but be wary. Dr. Octopus will often pull a card like Null, so be ready to use your Shadow King or Shang-Chi to make sure that Dr. Octopus doesn't accidentally mess you up. Turn 5 is kind of whatever finishes the clog. Viper, Annihilus, it could be anything. You just want to finish clogging one lane that you can be ahead in. If you can clog a lane and end up ahead in it, then your last turn is supposed to be Cannonball. to basically say whatever big thing they played in another lane is now a rock, or in the lane that doesn't matter, and Demon. And Demon is just big enough that it can usually win the clogged lane or help Cannibal out with his lane. Shang and Shadow King are also completely fine options here. All right, right after this next bit, we're going to review every single Spotlight card. We're going to tier them, and then we're going to go over a deck for each, because we always give you decks. One last look at It's Guess Gaming's Epic Sex Party before we ask you to hit that sub button. We are at over 13,700 subs. We are so close to hitting our goal of 15,000 by the end of 2024. Please, if you're willing, if you're enjoying the content, hit that sub button. It would mean the world to us. A like and a comment would also really help us with the YouTube algorithm. We're very close, and we bring you at least something like 40 to 50 new decks every single week in Marvel Snap. All the top players watch this channel. We get their decks. They send me their decks. I show you how to play them so that you can always stay ahead of the Marvel Snap meta, playing the very best decks before anyone else tells you about them. Please hit that sub button if that's something you find interesting or valuable. It would mean the world to us. In addition, we're giving away 5 more season passes. We're giving one person in the comments to this video will win the season pass. All you have to do is hit sub, like the video, and leave a comment. Later on this video, I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. That comment, people who left that comment, will be entered to win the season pass. That season pass announcement will be next week. We're announcing another season pass winner on Sunday. Sunday will be 2 videos. We're going to release the podcast where we do the top 10 decks of the current meta with Den, and then there will be a second video where we break down the card that we're going to talk about next, Agent Venom. That video will have 5 season pass giveaway winners. So if you want to go back to videos from earlier this week, Monday to Friday's videos also had season pass questions in them. Go watch those videos, leave a comment, and you can win Agent Venom. Agent Venom is a 2/4, Series 5, 6,000 tokens once he appears in the shop. On reveal, set the power of all cards in your deck to 4. First things first. This is a card that worries me. Anytime something affects deck, it makes me concerned. Okoye is a bad card, and Phastos is an extraordinarily disappointing card, the one that's starting to find a home or two. Is Agent Venom really going to be much better than that? How often are you going to draw all the cards? If you're running cards that Agent Venom will work on, would you rather just run Ravonna? All of these are questions I still have, but huge caveat. I talk to a lot of top players, and everyone seems really excited about him. 2/4 is good stats, and if 2/4 is good stats, and this card is going to be very good when it hits specific cards. We have a deck that I think is actually 1 card off because I built it a while ago. Moon Girl was since buffed to a 4/5, but you can put whatever 4-cost card in there. Don't stress it. This deck should be excellent. Agent Venom is really only hitting Cerebro, Mystique, and Iron Man, but hitting Cerebro and Mystique gives you not only 4 extra power on them, but it gives also their buff of 2 extra power on top of that, right? So Agent Venom hitting Cerebro is 6 extra power. That makes this card a 2/10, but it's also getting 2 from Cerebro, so you're getting 12 power out of that play. Iron Man alone is 8 power. That's why it's in the list. Plus, it's a 4-drop, and you're perfectly happy to just run a 4-drop. There's literally 2 2/4s in the game, so you take what you get, and you run it. This list, cut Moon Girl. Make it literally any other 4 in the game. You'll be fine. This should be a stellar list. I'm very excited to see if Cerebro 4 can finally be a meta version of Cerebro. All right. Scream is coming out on 10/1 along with Agent Venom. Scream is a 2/2, Series 5, 6,000 tokens. Everything is. I'm not going to repeat that over and over again. When an enemy card moves, steal 2 power from it once per turn. Okay, if this is any good, Move is in a lot of trouble. Move losing 2 for every single move is a ton. Getting +4 from a Vulture is not nearly as good. A Human Torch that immediately not only gives this 2 power, but loses 2 power. Ouch. Dagger is the one card that kind of survives, but even then only as like a last turn surprise, where it becomes a +10, not a +12. Scream seems absolutely for all the world like a card that you want in this meta, and even if it's not, I think that we have always been very close to an opponent's move cards thing. This card should take that over the top, right? Let's say you play this on 2. You can move something on turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, and turn 6. That's +8 power. That's 10 power on this. but it's also taken 8 power off your opponent's side. 218 is through the roof. I think that that's going to make a real deck. Scream has a Spotlight variant that I think is pretty decent. I don't think I'm going for it, but it's nice. Scream comes with Mobius and Man-Thing. Mobius is a card that's in and out of the meta. When it's in the meta, it's absolutely pivotal. The only offensive way to use Mobius right now is Pixie. So if you like Pixie decks or own Pixie, you should absolutely be targeting Mobius. Outside of that, this is a nice card to have, but not a requirement. Man-Thing is also Mobius is Series 4. Man-Thing is yet another Series 4 card, but this is one you absolutely want right now, depending on exactly how much Hella you're seeing. If you're seeing a medium amount of Hella, then you want Man-Thing, because Man-Thing is absolutely stellar in the meta. He's very often a 411 or 413, which is just through the roof power for a 4-drop. Genuinely great card. Even if the meta is not perfect for him right now, it will be at some point again soon. He's too much power to not be amazing. All right, let's go through some decks. Our Scream deck, I'm going to keep shouting this deck from the rooftops, and some people are like, put Magneto in. I don't think I actually want Magneto. I'm pretty sure I want my last turn to be Cannonball or Shang, but this is basically saying I'm going to play Clog, and I'm going to lock you down. I'm probably going to make Quake White Widow, because what I really want to do is use Spider-Man, Stegron, Polaris to clog the opponent's board. If I can clog the opponent's board, Cannonball can win me a location. Scream is working fundamentally as the same way as the Hood in that first deck. Craven works similarly. Craven can get big. You stick those in the lane that you're trying to sort of cheat your win in, and they get so big that that win should happen, while you also have the other lane to be closed off by your Cannonball, your Shang-Chi, your Juggernaut. I think this list is going to be a meta list. I'm calling it right now. It might need Cosmo for the Hella matchup. But outside of that, this list seems absolutely super good, and I'm very excited to see if this becomes a new meta deck, with Scream being fundamentally potentially up to a 218. Look, even if it's a 210 or a 214, you're pretty damn happy. Next up, we have Prodigy's Firestarter. That's not what he calls it. I just called it Firestarter because 90s kid. But this is a good home for Mobius. Mobius's main home is Pixie decks. Nice simple Mobius Pixie deck. It's a really good home. We covered this in a video last week, so if you're interested, make sure you check last week's videos for a full guide on this deck. But this is just saying if I've got Mobius Pixie and Infinite or She-Hulk get cheap at all, then I can just sort of go off in absolutely brutal ways. Mobius Pixie is obviously really strong, because then let's say your Hydra Bob becomes an Infinite. Well, no, he doesn't. He's still a 1-drop, because Mobius just gives you the more beneficial of the two numbers. It's awesome. Pixie decks really want Mobius. This is a really, really great deck. I played a lot of this. I think it's super fun and super powerful. Next up, we have Andre Var's repeat. He won a 50-person tournament with this 2 weeks in a row. Slightly different version this week. This is a Man-Thing deck. Man-Thing is required. Fundamentally, what you want to do is you want to go Wiccan, then you want to go Man-Thing in 3. If you don't go Wiccan, you're perfectly fine playing Man-Thing. He's a ton of power. Then you go Ajax and a bunch of other cards to win the game, even if it's just Hazmat and Shang to win the game. Really strong list. This is, in my opinion, one of the best decks in the game. It's a little expensive. Man-Thing decks can tend to run expensive. They almost always want at least US Agent, but Luke Cage is a Series 3 card, and that's the other real partner for this. Go get Man-Thing. I don't think you'll regret it. All right, Misery is a card coming out on 10/8. She's a 4/7. Series 5, 6,000 tokens. On reveal, repeat the on reveal abilities of your other cards here, then destroy them. So I'm curious if Misery becomes better Wiccan. Misery on Electro is fundamentally +2 energy for the rest of the game. You do a lot of work to get that for Wiccan. That's a 2-card combo. And Wiccan decks, like here, Wiccan decks tend to run fairly cheap curves. Misery says I can run Blink and a higher cost curve, because if I'm not going to Misery off my Electro, I'm going to Blink off my Electro. And that's like a real game plan. I think that could be a real thing. There's obviously also plenty of Destroy Shells, stuff like Nimrod. Perfectly happy for this. There's one piece of information we need, though. I'm pretty sure the them this destroys is those that have on reveal abilities repeated. If this destroys everything in the lane, I think it's fairly significantly worse. But even then, I think that I'm interested in seeing how good this is. I'm curious. I think losing 2 power fundamentally makes this a 3/5, right? But +2 energy the rest of the game seems like it's probably worth it. And also, you have Blink as a backup plan. Misery comes with 2 cards you want. Misery comes with War Machine, who's now a meta card. turning War Machine into an ongoing, solved all the War Machine problems. And I don't mean the silly Storm War Machine Legion thing. That happens in less than 20% of games. It's not reliable, but War Machine is just strong and consistent. You should get this card if you don't have it already. Meanwhile, Namora was considered the worst card of the month she came out in, and a lot of people skipped her. She's excellent, absolutely excellent, super duper strong. She's not great in a junk meta, but junk will get nerfed at some point relatively soon, I would guess, because it's been so good for so long. My assumption is they will take junk and Hela out to pasture within the next like 2-ish OTAs, and at that point, Namora is great right around the time for her to be in Spotlight caches, because she is a legitimately extremely powerful card. I don't especially like this Misery variant. I do think this is a very cool War Machine, and I think this Namora is absolutely gorgeous. I don't think I'm opening for this week. For variants, I have plenty of resources. I'm a content creator. I don't think I'm opening this week for variants, but I do think that these are quite nice. All right, so Misery Loves Symbiotes is our first deck. I feel like this should make a lot of sense. You basically can do the Electro thing right here, or you can do the Blink thing. That's it. That's the whole gist here. You do Electro or you do Blink, you should be totally fine. I'm not sure how, if you go Symbiote Spider-Man, Nimrod Misery will work, but I hope it blows up those Nimrods, and if it does, that seems absolutely awesome. I just think this is going to be good. I may be crazy, right? But I genuinely believe that this is going to be an absolutely stellar list. Also, I'm going to try to Electro, Symbiote Spider-Man, and then Misery, and then get plus like 3 or 4 energy to end the game. I just want to do it because it's fun. I think that this is going to be a real list, though. I don't think it's very far from a real list, and Misery is fundamentally just replacing a Tuma now, but I still think that it's very, very strong. All right. Our first list we're going to look at here is a War Machine list. Wait, what? Oh, sorry. Our next list we're going to look at, brain, is a War Machine list. Hey, look, there's Electro again. So this list, Electro and Blink again. Who'd have thought those two cards go together? This list by Bonkerton has been one of the top win rate decks all season. In top 10% infinite, and no one really knows about it, and very few people are playing it. We covered it in Friday's videos if you're interested in a full breakdown, but basically War Machine is required here. War Machine, Ebony Maw, and Infinite are the package for this list. If you get War Machine out on turn 4, you have a 20 power card to drop to end the game. That's it. It's really great. It also says if you went Electro, you can then play War Machine, and playing War Machine after Electro says you just get the extra energy without the downside. So if you went Electro into War Machine, you can then immediately Sable or Maw and Blink, which is pretty damn good. Or you can play Infinite and Maw to end the game, for example, which again seems really strong. Finally, we have, did somebody say Galactus? This is Avazord's Galactus list. We could have found plenty of Namora lists, but I'm partial to this given the recent buffs to Galactus and Symbiote. Basically, this list says I've got a million ways to do silly Namora stuff, and once in a while Galactus happens too. Galactus happens through Symbiote Spider-Man and Galactus. You play Symbiote Spider-Man, you play Galactus, and then all of a sudden you have a 13 power lane, which can win. Especially if there's a -3 on the opponent's side, and especially if there was like a Jeff or something that was suggesting to them that you weren't going to be able to do anything in that lane, like you were going to symbiote that Jeff or something. Nah. Instead, you get a Galactus. Namora's really, really great here. She's fine with Symbiote Spider-Man, right? If you go Jeff in one lane, Cassandra Nova in another lane, Symbiote Spider-Man, Namora, or Bong Namora, you've got a bajillion power in 2 lanes. Because you have magic, you can end up Odining that Namora. This list is very good and very powerful. I don't know why no one plays it anymore. Well, I guess I do. Junk is why no one plays it anymore. But again, if Junk goes away, this is going to be absolutely great. All right, next up we have Scorn. She's 10-15 Spotlight card. We're already in the middle of the month. 1-2. When you discard this, return to your hand and give it +2 power to itself and one of your cards in play. It's a good discard card. Does it go anywhere else? Nope. The big question is, does it make you not run Swarm? Swarm is often fairly uncomfortable in discard. She puts you in weird spots, or it puts you, I don't know if Swarm standard. It puts you in weird spots. Scorn should fundamentally solve that, because eventually it's going to get pretty big itself, so if you're discarding it at the end of the game, you're fine. But also, you can just play it for cheaper, right? So if you run Corvus, you could even play this and Or I guess you don't even need that Corvus, right? You can just play this with your Modok and not have to worry about having a last card in your hand to mess up your Dracula Apocalypse. I think Scorn's going to be good for discard, but like, I don't know. I don't know if I give a crap. I don't think discard is very good. Reasonably cool variant. Scorn is our technological symbiote. Cool. Jean Grey comes with Storm. Jean has always one or two decks that are pretty close to meta, but never quite good enough. And Sebastian Shaw is an absolute must have for Surfer decks, but nothing else really. We keep trying to make buff decks a thing, but they're not. Jean Grey is very good. This Jean Grey variant is very good. Jean Grey is not very good. This Jean Grey variant, the Dark Phoenix one, is super cool, and I really like the Shaw variant. Again, probably not opening for these variants, but they're real pretty. All right, so regular ass discard. This is the Scorn discard. I decided to keep Swarm in this version. I don't know. I just feel like Swarm, Scorn, and Collector seem like a decent combo. I went back to Colleen Wing. Colleen Wing has been out of these lists for a little while because Scorn is in the list. And that's it. Everything else is simple, right? You get a couple cards on the board. You get extra power on the Collector, Morbius, and Dracula. You're perfectly happy with that. Scorn's a good card, y'all. Like, it's going to go in this list. I'm pretty damn sure. All right, next up, we have Buddy's Guardian's Move. Our friend Buddy Lean, again, we covered this list earlier this week, decided to put Jean Grey and Guardians into a mixed with Move. If Move survives Scream, this is going to be really good. Not Scream. What's the name of that card? Don't mind me. Let's click way back. Yes, you're going on a ride for me. So these symbiotes, oh, it is Scream. These symbiotes are the only cards in Marvel Snap that I don't know anything about. I don't love symbiotes in comics. So like I'm learning what these cards are right now with you guys. Okay. So regularized discards. Then this. So if Scream does not absolutely break Move, this deck will be great. This deck is great. It's got an insanely high win rate. It's very fun and worth playing. If not, I don't think Jean exists, y'all. All right, next up we have Surfer Classic. Surfer Classic is basically just the nice simple Brood deck. You have Gwenpool to hit Shaw, that's great. You have Forge to hit Shaw, that's great. You have Nova's Destroyed to hit Shaw, that's great. And Surfer to hit Shaw. All those are potential +4s. Gwenpool, sorry, I guess Nova's potential +3. The others are potential +4s, and Gwenpool's plus more than that. There's a lot to like here. This deck is very strong. It's very cool. It's very fun. It's got play into everything, and Shaw is fundamentally a requirement at this point. He gets real big and lane winning all by himself after a Gwenpool. All right, Toxin, the card I'm most looking forward to, shockingly. It's a bounce card. I love bounce. Toxin's a 2/1. On reveal, return your other cards to your hand for +2 power for each return. Toxin's going to be great. Toxin's the reason Beast became a 3/4. Or 3/5 because you can't have two 2-drop bouncers or they can just bounce each other fundamentally for way too much of the game. Toxin becoming fundamentally a 2/7 with 1 bounce, and then you can still beast him, and then he becomes potentially a 2/13 is going to be amazing. I think it's also going to be necessary if Scream is good because Werewolf has to go out of the bounce decks. I'm very excited for Toxin. Either way, he's going to go in every bounce deck, and the new Black Swan's going to love this card. All right, Toxin comes with a very cool variant, but Toxin also comes with 2 meh cards. Zabu is not a good card right now. Once he was nerfed, he wasn't good. We thought he'd be activate. He's not activate. He's still bad. I hope by the time he's in Spotlight Caches, he's finally buffed. Elsa was at one point one of the 2 or 3 best cards they ever printed in Marvel Snap. She's been nerfed and reworked readdressed several times. She's now a good card that doesn't have great homes. I like Elsa. I think Elsa's a good card, but she's not great. All right. Barzy hit number 2 with a bounce lift. Werewolf was in this list instead of Toxin. If Werewolf has to go, I think Toxin can do a decent enough job with a single bounce at matching that Werewolf's power, and thus, here he is. That's fundamentally the entire logic here. Well, I don't have that one card that I really like, so let's add another. I think Toxin's really going to be great in this list. You can, if you've got like a 2/11 Toxin, right? Let's say you didn't go totally off. You got like a 2/11 Toxin because you bounced the one with Beast. You can get a huge monkey, you can get a huge sage. It's got a different number than everything else in these decks. Love this card. All right, Buddy's new Sarah. Buddy's back again. We covered this weeks ago. But basically the idea here is you can go Zabu and Symbiote. If you do that with Sarah, your forest costs 2. If you don't have Sarah and you can play Symbiote and then play Zabu on him and immediately trigger Symbiote, your forest costs 2. That's pretty good. Some good Marvel Snap use of tech cards. This list does not beat Hela in any way, shape, or form, but it's a strong list. It's still got a really high win rate against basically everything else. Next up, we have Derek, the current #1 player's Noki deck. This is a list that runs Elsa Bloodstone. There's not really great lists that run Elsa Bloodstone. This is another list that did not survive first contact with it didn't survive first contact with Hela, but this was for several weeks this season the best deck in the game. Hela goes away. Elsa all of a sudden has a really solid home. I think this list is good. Is it great? Nah, but it's good. All right, our final card of the season is Anti-Venom, and it's my pick for best card of the season. It's not the card I'm most excited for. That's Toxin, but I think Anti-Venom is going to be incredible. As a 4/6, that's great stats. On reveal, set the cost and power of your deck's top card to 0. Iron Man, Darkhawk, Rock Slide, Mystique, White Widow, Black Widow. There's a million cards that want to be anti-venomed. If you hit a card that you don't want to hit, Shadow King will give it its power back. Anti-Venom is going to be incredible. I have absolutely no doubt. So, Anti-Venom also, this is the week I'm opening for Spotlights because that Anti-Venom looks gorgeous. I don't have a Super Giant variant, and I think that's probably my favorite Ghost Spider variant. Super Giant's not a meta card, just fair warning. Super Giant is a card that's always almost meta and has not yet quite made it. Cool card, but just not there. Also, by the way, this is 10/29. I missed the date there. And Symbiote, Ghost Spider is an absolutely meta card right now. If move is good, if move remains good, Ghost Spider is the best one-drop move enabler. Yes, including Aranya. Yes, including Iron Fist. Ghost Spider is letting you choose when and how to do things is incredibly, incredibly strong. And I think you probably need her, but she is a Series 4 card. Super Giants, bad, but really pretty variant. And I really want all 3 of these variants, friends. So I'm open for this. All right, so the good standard. This is our standard good stuff list. I cut Cosmo. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. I'm not sure what I want to cut here. But this list is too freaking good with Anti-Venom. You're perfectly fine to hit Korg. A 0, put a rock in a deck, great. Thena starts as a 0 on turn 5, not great, but okay, you're fine, right? Like, you didn't lose anything there. Ravonna, okay, I'll just make my stuff cheaper for free next turn. Angela's bad. Angela's the one really bad hit. Kate, okay, you still get the 2 cards, right? Cassandra Nova, awesome. You're perfectly happy to get Cassandra Nova. She's already 0, you're making it better. Mystique, awesome. You can now Iron Man and Darkhawk on the last turn of the game, even without Ravonna. Rock Slide, great. I'll get freely put 2 rocks. Iron Man and Darkhawk are obviously insane. We saw how good a 4/0 Darkhawk was forever. Making it a 0/0 will be perfectly fine, while Iron Man as a 0/0 is perfectly freaking fine. I am so excited for this card in this type of list. I think this is going to be the best deck in the game, period, bar none. It probably still wants Cosmo, but like maybe not. Maybe it's just so good it doesn't give a shit. All right, next up we have Ikazu. This is my favorite Super Giant list in the game by a lot. It's got some play into Hela because it's got Super Giant, right? If they don't get their discard and orders right, you can Super Giant and really ruin their life. Basically, this is just saying, are you trying to run some Ajax bullshit? Are you trying to run, are you trying to get your move stuff off? Well, deal with it happening in the wrong order. Super Giant's really disruptive for Zoo in a way that the deck really needs, and this is my personal favorite Zoo list. Finally, we have Ava's move list. There's 15 of these, but they all run Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider is absolutely stellar, must-play card in every single move list, every single Phoenix Force list, and one of the best cards in the game. This is one of the best decks. Ghost Spider is one of the best cards. You should have Ghost Spider. All right, so let's tier every card this month, and we're going to shout out Docty because as soon as he's settled into his new apartment, we'll do a tier list video of every Series 4 and 5 card on his channel. It's been a while since we've done one because my friend's moving. So there are no S tier cards this season. I think Anti-Venom and Toxin may be S tier, but giant neon caveat, I'm unwilling to put any new cards in S tier, partially because a card in A tier, War Machine. War Machine came out, everyone swore it was going to be S tier, and it just was not. Excuse me. I need to drink some water. My throat is starting to get scratchy. Sorry about that. War Machine just was terrible for ages after it came out. We thought Jean Grey was going to be good. Jean Grey is barely freaking playable. All these things fundamentally mean that I'm unwilling to put a new card in S tier. Ghost Spider is A tier. If a Series 5 Ghost Spider might be S tier, it's pushing S tier as the best move enabler, but it's A tier, assuming move still exists. We will know by the time Ghost Spider comes out if move survives contact with Scream. Anti-Venom, I think, is going to be the best card of the month. I think Anti-Venom's incredible. I think Anti-Venom is going to make the deck that we looked at today the best deck in the game. Toxin is an absolute must for bounce decks. You will never play a bounce deck without Toxin ever again unless he's nerfed or something weird happens like that, which means that you want Toxin. I think bounce is fundamentally always a near top tier deck, and so Toxin is a card that you should have. War Machine opens up an absolute ton of new decks. War Machine is yet another card that you would really, really like to own in Marvel Snap. War Machine is the thing here that is, because it's Series 5, that is closest to being S tier. I would not be furious if someone put it in S tier. It's closer to S than it is to B. It is probably the best card of the month that you can get. B tier is for decks that you like. Sebastian Shaw goes in one deck. It's really good there. Jean goes in 1.5 decks. Really good there. If you want Surfer, though, you're going to have to bump Shaw up. Jean, I mean, I guess you could want those decks. Don't want Jean, y'all. Jean is much closer to C than she is to A. Misery is in B, just in case she works great. I would not shock me. Misery with feels like the Namora of the month to me, the card that everyone sort of sleeps on that ends up great. Namora ended up great. I think she's going to find her feet by the time she's in spotlights. I fully expect Junk to be hit hard. Mobius is a card that you're always just happy to own. It's not great, but it is Series 4. So meh. Man-Thing could easily be in the A tier. I'm not sold on Man-Thing being in B tier. If Man-Thing were a Series 5 card, it would be an A tier card, but because you can buy it so cheaply, using spotlights on it hurts a little bit. I think Scream's going to end up A tier. I think it's going to create a new deck. It wouldn't shock me if it ended up even higher than A tier and S tier. We shall see, but what you need to know for now is I'm very high on Scream. Cards that are if they suit you, Elsa and Scorn. Scorn is for decks you like, discard, but the decks you like that Scorn goes in are kind of not good right now. I don't think discard's in a good place. Elsa is also just a cool card, but not worth owning. Supergiant will eventually get out of C tier. She'll get buffed and get higher. I think they're leaving Supergiant kind of weaker. They're leaving Supergiant kind of weaker because I don't think they want her to be great. I think it's very easy to buff her to be good, but they don't do it on purpose. And Zabu just needs a rework. All right, that's the tiering of every card this month. Let's go over a little bit more. So obviously target the highest tier stuff, which is once again Ghost Spider, Anti-Venom, Toxin, and War Machine. Note that there are no S tier cards, which means that you can sort of pick and choose based on decks you like. Week 1, Man-Thing opens up a ton of archetypes, but it's Series 4. Mobius is great to have just for when meta shifts, and Scream could be a new deck or not much. Luckily, we'll know how good Scream is relatively quickly. If you need Man-Thing, there's worse things to do than open for these if Scream proves to be good, and we will know within the week. Check back by Thursday and Friday's video in order to be sure how good Scream is. Misery could be a new deck. Could be. Not guaranteed, but could be a new deck with Electro. We just have to figure it out. War Machine and Namora both open up new decks, and both are quite good. If you like, let's say you're just opening things for the first time, this is the week I would open. War Machine is great. It opens up new decks. Namora opens up new decks. That's 2 Series 5 cards that open up 2 decks. If I was opening 1 week this season, not for the new card, this is the week I'd open. I think Misery could be amazing or could be terrible. My guess is she's going to be very good. Scorn is discard only, Shaw is mostly Surfer, and Jean is mostly ongoing. If you want those decks, fine, but this seems mid. This is the easiest week to skip by a lot. Toxin is going to be awesome. I can promise you Toxin is going to be awesome. They're not, Bounce is very hard to mess up. And putting more power into Bounce is something that Bounce is very happy to do. I love it. Elsa is fine, but not needed. And Zabu is absolute crap. If they buff Zabu, this week can easily go up. Zabu is still a Series 4 card, but if they buff Zabu, this week could easily go up even so to be the #1 week. If they don't buff Zabu, this week is only if you love bounce like I do. Alright, last week is, if you believe me that Anti-Venom is going to be an S tier card, then you can just put this to the top, because Anti-Venom and Ghost Spider are probably the 2 best cards this month then. Supergiant just doesn't matter right now. She'll open up some cool combos, but unless you're Stefan, you don't really need it. Ghost Spider, if you play Move or Phoenix Force or want to mess with the Move package, is a card you absolutely need. This is the second most likely week to open. I'm going to be honest with you. The ceiling on the Misery week isn't that high, unless Misery becomes the new Wiccan. Meanwhile, the ceiling on the Toxin week and the Anti-Venom week are through the roof, but they both require things to happen. Zabu would need a buff, and Move would need to survive Scream. All good? Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you have all the information you need to make an informed decision on what to open. If I were ranking the weeks, as of right now, I would put the Misery week at rank 1, the Anti-Venom week at rank 2, the Toxin week at 3, the Scream week at 4, and the Scorn week at 5. Alright, questions of the day, and then we are done. Let me do the thing, wants to know how long a deck statute of limitations is. And, like, that's impossible to answer. It depends on the deck and depends on the meta, right? Some decks survive, like, 6 to 8 months. The original Loki decks, like, they were barely changed 2 or 3 cards for, like, half a year until they finally nerfed that out of existence. Bounce, if you went back and looked at .Geo's Bounce deck that he won the Snap Grand Prix with, that deck would still absolutely work right now. That deck would still absolutely be really good. What you have to do when you figure out whether a deck is good or not is you have to look at what it's strong and weak against. If it's strong against the things that are in the meta right now, the deck is still good. If it's weak against the things that are in the meta right now, the deck is bad. That's fundamentally how it works. Can it compete with Move, Hela, and Junk? If it can compete with those 3, it's a real deck. If it can't compete with those 3, you should probably delete it. You can save it somewhere. You can just save your deck code, throw it into Marvel Snap Zone, press save, make a profile, throw it into Marvel Snap Zone, press save, and then you can always go get it again if you need it. But that's how I do things. I also have to test new decks constantly, but whatever. KingofCanada asks if I'm sad that there's likely a cap on how big I can get Marvel Snap. No. I'm already bigger than I thought I'd ever be. My goal was to, like, hit 1,000 in the first year. And I hit, like, way more than that in the first year. 5,000 in the first year, something silly. And I think we may hit 15,000 by year 2. Like, no, I love this game, but this is still my hobby. I'm a full-time teacher. So, like, this has grown well beyond my wildest dreams. When you hear the new announcements we have coming in a couple weeks, yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like, this has grown so much more than anyone could have expected. I was on the freaking Marvel Snap official page. Come on. Actually, this seems like a good time, while we're here, to do the question for the giveaway. Which Spotlight Week are you most likely to open? That's my question to you, dear viewer. Which Spotlight Week are you most likely to open? Alright, ST Don't Be Evil asked the funniest show I've seen lately. The English Teacher, I know that's a cliche answer considering I'm me, but The English Teacher is absolutely stellar. I've been really enjoying it. I think it's really funny. A lot of it hits close to home. Meanwhile, I am rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine again, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine is wonderful. Shoutouts to Only Murders in the Building, which is a little less funny than both of those shows, but still absolutely wonderful. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. Please check out our Patreon. You can subscribe even for free and get some cool stuff. I'd like to say thank you to Abigail Giesland, Mandatory Burnout, Cables, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, LAB, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, Deuce, Fault, ooh, this is an old one, Inc., I Am Frostman, Jane Every, Corwin, Primed Ryan, Reinberg, Cartix Lee, Quayray, Black Dahlia, Pyrophoros, The Goat Seeker, Archangel 3K, who's not written here, but I promise he's there, Denman Falcon, Quid Pro Joe, Doc D, the King of Boo Marvel Snap Card Content, Frat Nick, Ginger Prime, Philip Rakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of The Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, X-Force V, and Skippy G, Tommy Nyquist, who won Saturday League Season 1, The King of Bros, Grey Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Ryan Wood, Kepsi Hoda, Ludacris, Quantum Quinn, John Q, Jimmy McHugh, Clam, 8th Sage, Models, Mod Supreme, The One and Only Darth Vader, No Joke A, Joe B, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B., and new friend Steven. Thank you so much for joining, Steven. J. T. McDonaldino, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrumix, Hoot, Matt H., DJ, Mikey, Hijinks, No Frickin' Flex, Ocularis, Mr. Craig Sterry, Seamus, who just unsubscribed to this, but I just want to take a moment. Seamus is a day one supporter. Super appreciate you, Seamus. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Cannot speak highly enough of having you in my life, whether you're a patron or not. Two Ties, the Great Lorem Devs, the Parry King Tuccrr, the Home Minute, of course, going to T, where the T stands for. Woof! This was quite the video. It's like 1 a.m. So I'm going to post this, get my butt to bed, and I'll see you tomorrow for 2 videos. Peace.